All right, welcome to the Gaming Lounge podcast, episode 19. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
Hey, doing all right, Seb. Glad to be here. We'll talk about some really sad news and also some more positive gaming stuff that came out this week.
Yeah, it was an extremely dry week for news and games, but there was one sad news that happened this week. So I'm going off TheVerge.com. Game Informer is shutting down. So Game Informer has been a gaming magazine for the last 33 years, and it's unfortunately shutting down. So I'm going to read off the article. Game Informer, one of the last remaining game magazines, is shutting down after 33 years. The GameStop-owned publication announced on Friday. The magazine's entire staff is being laid off, Kotaku reports. In its statement posted to X, Twitter, the publication didn't give a reason for the shutdown. GameStop didn't immediately reply to a request for a comment. Last year, GameStop CEO and chairman Ryan Cohen told staff that every expense at the company must be scrutinized under a microscope and all waste eliminated, according to an email obtained by Kotaku. In March, Game Informer introduced out a way to subscribe to the magazine directly. Previously, you could only get the magazine by buying issues on their own or through a GameStop Pro subscription. Quote, hard times, layoffs, cancellations, and closures have impacted thousands of game developers and publishers as well as other outlets like us that celebrate games. End quote. Editor-in-chief Matt Miller wrote Game Informer's blog post about the ad announcement. After we published the article, the link to the post directed to Game Informer's shutdown message. We haven't been immune to that hardship. And then they added, after 33 years, this is from Game Informer, their final, their farewell to everybody. After 33 years, thrilling years of bringing you the latest news, reviews, and insights from the ever-evolving world of gaming, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of Game Informer. From the early days of pixelated adventures to today's immersive virtual realms, we've been honored to share this incredible journey with you, our loyal readers. While our presses may stop, the passion for gaming that we've cultivated together will continue to live on. Thank you for being part of our epic quest, and may our own gaming adventures never end. All right, and there was an update from the article as well on August 2nd, which was yesterday, that from the editor-in-chief that the subscription is no longer viewable as well. All right, so this is sad news. I've been reading Game Informer since the 90s, or at least early 2000s, and back when gaming magazines were a thing. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting that from GameStop, or at the time it was EB Games, if I recall. I used to read their magazines with my pro subscription with GameStop. I still have a pro subscription to GameStop, but I never really use the magazines anymore. I'm all digital now, so magazines kind of went like the dodo bird. But it's still sad to see people lose their jobs, and they're shutting down the digital version too. So the whole thing is just shutting down completely. Dory, how do you feel about this? Oh, you muted.
Yeah, not great. I was a loyal subscriber to Game Informer for a long time when I was a kid into when I was a teenager. My childhood was basically made up of stacks of Nintendo Power and Game Informer. That's how I got a lot of my gaming news. If I wasn't watching G4 or looking on Primal Internet, so it's pretty tough for me. My dog's also having a tough time. So similar to him, I'm going through it right now. This was really sad. It's even more sad because the writers, Alex Van Aken, who is one of the people who's been there for a long time, wrote about how they can't even access their past work now. It just all relinks to a landing page, which is the farewell that Seb just wrote. So it just destroyed, I don't even know how many articles of people's work that they spent so many hours of their life on. I mean, you and I used to write articles, or at least I used to write articles for us when we were a different podcast. It's not an easy thing to do. writing reviews or features or whatever.
Yeah, I used to write for multiple websites since like 2016.
Right. So
Not anymore.
we both
Good.
right. We both know how difficult that can be. So it's really sad. And it just feels like, I saw this coming a long time ago, even as early as I want to say maybe last year or the year before. It just seemed like, especially with Andy McNamara leaving and joining a studio, I forget which studio he joined, but a lot of the major people who had been there for years, decades, leaving Game Informer and going to actual gaming studios or just leaving journalism altogether. It really seemed like the beginning of the end, especially when a lot of the layoffs happened in 2019, which formed MinMax, which you and I both used to be part of, and how we met. It just seems like this has been building for a long time. Now, did this have to happen? No, I don't think it did. I think Game Informer's got plenty of money, and they're just penny pinching as much as they can. Even people way up in Game Informer didn't know this was happening. Like even some of the higher ups didn't know and were taken aback by it. And so it's just a really shitty situation on top of everything else. I've really honestly just had it with Game Informer as a company. I'm sure the local stores are nice, and I've never really had any bad experiences with individual people who work there. But the GameStop Corporation can just absolutely like jump off a cliff or something, because like just seems like one of the worst corporations right now, with laying off the entire staff, not telling anyone behind, not telling anyone beforehand. Just an awful way to do business, and making it so they can't access any of their work, which is really important for resumes. Of course, maybe they have their work saved on Google Drive or something like that, but it's still the principle of the matter. I also want to say, on a personal note, it sucks because I used their release date schedule. A lot of people use the release date schedule. That was a heavily updated page that had all of the releases. In fact, it's so useful. I used it like 3 episodes ago when we were talking about our most highly anticipated games for 2024 for the second half of it. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to claim I'm Game Informer's biggest, bravest soldier or something, or their biggest fan, but I loved them as a kid, loved them as a teenager. I still followed their work the last couple of years, and it's really sad. It's just really sad. I feel a lot of sadness and a lot of anger. It's just another layoff that is connected to gaming in this horrible years of gaming related layoffs. So obviously both Seb and I are sending our well wishes to anybody and everybody who got laid off, and hoping you all land on your feet. It's just a terrible thing. And they were doing some really cool stuff there. I mean, I wasn't going to buy it. So I know like it doesn't really make me a great representative, but I thought the stuff they were doing with buying the magazine directly instead of going to Game Informer, going to GameStop, what a stupid model that was. And it was there for a long time. They lost so much money that they could have got on like digital issues and just buying it directly. And then GameStop, the corporation, just punishes them for their own mistakes, GameStop Corporation's own mistakes, and just lays everybody off. So it's terrible. I follow some of the people on GameStop, and I got some of the posts and stuff from people. It's heartbreaking, but it's also really angering at the same time. So yeah, it sucks, and I really don't think this will be the last bad thing. One last thing I'll say is, if this doesn't show the current state of the gaming industry, I don't know what does. Like 3 days before Game Informer was shuttered, one of their last stories was about how a whole bunch of people at Bungie got laid off, which we're not going to cover. But I mean, if that just doesn't, 3 days before they themselves were all laid off, they covered how another company was laid off hundreds of their employees. So it's just, yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, they wrote quality articles. I really enjoyed their magazines for a long time. They would have like exclusive content, exclusive screenshots, things like that, and it's sad to see. I mean, I guess it's inevitable for magazines because a lot of people don't read magazines anymore. But like this could have been handled so much better. I think the worst part of this, besides the layoffs, is the fact that people weren't able to keep their work, and it's really hard to get another job when you lost your portfolio. Like that's so important as in journalism to have a portfolio and a history of your work. I couldn't imagine that. I really hope there's something happened. I really hope they figure something out in the background that allowed the people to have their work for other jobs, because that's so important in that field, more than any other field, really. So it's sad to
Yeah.
see. It's
I will also say a lot of the covers they did, especially as a kid, were legendary. They always looked so good. The cover stories were always so good. Their rating system, I know this is a very niche thing, but like my own rating system for like wrestling, which I'm like always obsessed with, is like basically the Game Informer model, like doing 25, 50, 75 with the decimals. Like that's basically what I do for wrestling. I do it with pretty much everything. Actually, I think it's a pretty good system. It's not as straightforward as a 1 through 5 system, but it's not as tedious as a adding decimals to a 1 to 10 system either. So I don't know. Or you could argue it's more tedious because more numbers, but I don't know. I've always liked it. I've always just liked the using the 25th and stuff, or the 1/4 model, as I guess I'll call it. There's just a lot of cool people there too. A lot of cool people who I met through MinMax and know because of MinMax. And just it's just a really sad thing. When somebody said this online, I forget their name. I think that they are one of the writers for the Aftermath, which is from, I want to say, one of the other places that got shut down, the other journalistic places that got shut down that was related to gaming. I forget what though. But anyway, they basically said like it's really sad that the only way you can stay in business at this point in the gaming industry is go into business for yourself. Is that such a costly, difficult thing to do?
even
But yeah,
that's super risky. I mean, being an
yes,
indie developer,
for sure.
because you gotta imagine like how many games there are, and there's only so much time for someone to play a game. That like a lot of these developers and companies got to figure out like how to find a space for themselves, because when there's like 100 battleground games, or like 100 shooters, or 100 indie games that do the same kind of genre, how do you find a place for your own company? It's like that's
I mean, they were mostly talking about journalism, but yes, I agree with what you're saying.
Even in journalism too, it's like there's so many websites now that cover games, and IGN is like the big one, obviously, and they bought out like a lot of these companies not too long ago, right? So,
and we referenced Kotaku earlier, but I mean, Kotaku is hanging on by life support too.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gotten bought up and changed around, and a lot of the original staff has left. I believe Aftermath is actually from a lot of former Kotaku people, or at least people associated with the site. It's just not a good space for gaming or games journalism right now. Just not a lot of places left, really, besides IGN. And I don't think IGN will ever fold just because of their parent corporation or whatever.
Yeah, they're too big to fail.
But yeah, they're too big to fail at this point.
Yeah, if there's something happened to them, they would just be bought out by someone else, I think, and they would keep it going. But yeah, I'm speaking in the industry as a whole, in both gaming and journalism, that like there's just so many limited spaces now, and it's people don't have so much time to do things, play games and read and stuff. It's really hard to find a place. It's a really risky industry to get into. I personally would not take that chance, that kind of industry. Maybe when I was a teenager or something, when I was really into. I mean, I'm really into gaming now, but like when I was like really, I thought like maybe when I grow up I want to be in the game industry, but I couldn't do it. I'd rather be in a stable career personally. But I hope everybody lands on their feet. Both of us hope everybody lands on their feet and everything turns out well. And it's sad to see, of course, because we both grew up with Game Informer. All right, so let's move on to what we're playing. Dory has been playing Dragon Age Origins. She's been playing that for a few weeks now, and she also completed Dungeons of Hitterberg. But first, before we get into that, talk about Dragon Age. How are you liking Dragon Age so far?
It's so good. On a lighter note, like Dragon Age Origins, I'm like super addicted to it. It says that I have like 60 something hours, but that's just because I left EA on one night. I think I was actually in the character creator, so I was at the beginning of the game, and like I think I logged like 29 hours or something because I left it on overnight. So I'm actually not like 63 hours in. I'm probably like 30ish, 25 to 30 hours in. I just got to the dwarves and Orzammar. I think this combat is just incredible. It holds up really well. It reminds me of a less polished. Obviously, it's a CRPG, and so is the game I'm about to reference. But it reminds me of a less polished Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, there's slightly different mechanics and slightly different system. A lot less dice rolls, but it really reminds me of that battle system, and I love that battle system. I have very few quibbles with the game. I mean, obviously, graphically, it doesn't hold up. It's going for a very realistic kind of art style, and that just doesn't hold up over 10 years later, like 15 years later now, actually. But it's not terrible, and you can do mods too to remaster it a little bit, improve visuals, which I've done, and I honestly think it looks fine, but obviously it doesn't look great. Sometimes the characters can be a little finicky with whether they're attacking or not attacking, even if you pause a lot. The right click and the left click are different, so sometimes you can get those mixed up. Tapping my little mouse pad too can also do different things. So it's a little overly janky at times. But really, yeah, I mean, everything in this game still holds up amazingly. The combat, the characters. Morgan is who I was thinking about last time. And she is just an awesome character. There's so many good characters. I mean, it's a classic BioWare game, right? So many good companions. I mean, I think there's like 9 companions in the whole game. And I just unlocked another one through the DLC. I've actually done all DLC, as far as I know. So yeah, it's been really fun. I think it makes you decide on some really hard choices. Like right now in Orzammar, I've got the choice between some absolute asshole, but with decent politics, versus a really nice guy who's just not fit to lead, right? And that's kind of my dilemma: is like, which do I go with? And I'm leaning towards the asshole, unfortunately. Yeah, it makes you think about things in terms of your choices. Those choices end up having consequences. My God, think about that. Yeah, it's just a great time. It's a great BioWare game. I mean, it's no surprise I love this game. Mass Effect's one of my favorite games of all time. KOTOR and even KOTOR 2 are also two of my favorite games of all time. Well, KOTOR 2 was Raven, but originally was BioWare. So yeah, KOTOR is one of my favorite games of all time as well. I think Dragon Age is probably up there for me. I think it's an incredible game. Needs to be played by more people. It's on Game Pass. Probably when I'm done with this, I'm probably just going to go straight into Dragon Age 2. I don't see why not. I'm just playing all these games just so I know what the heck's going on in Veilguard. What?
That one's a step down, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was Inquisition the better one, or was Dragon Age 2 the...
Inquisition's the better one. Inquisition won Game of the Year.
Right. I knew one of them won Game of the Year.
Yeah, two is not well liked, if I recall. Okay. Yeah, it's not the best.
Fair enough. But I can at least say Origins, it holds up really, really well. There's been lots of really cool twists in the game. A lot of your companions are very funny, very well written. It's a lot like most BioWare games, right? Your companions are some of the best parts of the game. Of course, there's romance stuff. Just like in real life, you just give gifts to people until they sleep with you. I mean, that's just how it works in real life too, of course. Sarcasm. But yeah. I don't know. I really have almost nothing to say except praise about it. I think by the next time we talk about it, I will be done. I think also the game's very well balanced in terms of difficulty. I had a dungeon that I was actually a little underleveled, not super underleveled, but a little bit. And I was pretty much out of potions by the time I got to the end, and I almost turned it down to easy. But because I kept just squeaking by, you can always segment off groups too. Like you can have your companions halt, and then they will take on a certain amount of enemies, and then you can like back up, run away from the battlefield. Bravely, Sir Robin ran away. But anyway, you can do a Sir Robin from Monty Python and run away for a little bit, heal up, save so you don't lose your progress, and then go back into the fight. It's cheap, but I mean, it gets the job done, and you're trying to fight a literal blight, so against the Darkspawn. So, I mean, I feel like that's okay. It actually has not been, I mean, it's kind of been weeks I've been playing this, but I will say I also had to play Flintlock and Dungeons of Hinterberg, which I guess I should just talk about right now. Because since I pretty much have nothing else to say, just that you should go play it. It's on Game Pass. Just like Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Or it's cheap to get like on Steam.
It's also cheap to get. Yes, so I got it through Game Pass, but you can get it for pretty cheap on Steam as well. There's a lot of mod support. There's this cute little raven that you can talk to through one of the mods. I wasn't sure if it actually went through. You don't get it unless you go to Orzammar, which is the dwarven city. But basically, he can help you. The raven can help you respec your character and stuff. Which is pretty cool. But yeah, I just love all the characters in that game. I don't think there's a single miss. The writing is so good. So I now have incredibly unrealistically high expectations for Veilguard that it will probably not meet because BioWare is a shell of itself. I think a lot of the people, we've talked about gaming layoffs. This isn't necessarily the same, but BioWare, a lot of the people have left. I believe they've quit, not gotten laid off. I could be wrong on that. But it's so yeah, BioWare's just not. It's like Telltale. They're the same company, largely in name. There are some people from BioWare who've been there since the beginning, or at least Dragon Age. But a lot of the people who are working on Veilguard are not the same, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it does take away a lot of expert talent, Anyway, so I'm really excited for Veilguard now, but I will be waiting on reviews just in case it, is like Dragon Age 2 or isn't well received or whatever. Dungeons of Hinterberg. So I don't have a ton to talk about, but I just want to mention a couple points I meant to mention last week. The first thing I want to mention is the platforming. Platforming really sucks. Louisa will either jump too far or she'll jump too short, and sometimes she'll jump when you don't want her to jump. It's a minor nitpick, but it is like a legitimate criticism.
I don't think
it frustrated me.
I don't think it's minor. I think it's a big criticism of the game. We forgot to talk about it, but it kind of reminded me of the Crash Bandicoot remake, where it was like it was not made for like a modern visual, and that like it seems like there's something wrong with the hitbox, or not the hitbox, but like the register of the platforming, that like for whatever reason she doesn't land properly, and she also jumps when you don't want her to jump, because you jump just by like moving the stick up moving.
That's the other problem too, is you don't have a lot of control over when you jump or how far you jump, and obviously you end up not really being able to control where you jump. But yeah, so that can be frustrating, especially because some of the dungeons can be very platformy with moving stuff. I will say the puzzles were pretty good. I only had to look things up like I think a couple times or a few times overall. I don't remember exactly how many hours I had dungeons. I think it was like 19, 20 hours. Yeah, I was very close to 20 hours. And I think it was like 19 hours because I left it running at one point for a little bit. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good game. I wouldn't say it was a great game. I'd say like 7.5 kind of vibe for me. It was. I had a good time overall, and I think the plot, like Seb said last time, gets going towards the end. I found it more interesting, although who the villain is pretty obvious. I did think the twist with one of the plot devices they introduced that I even talked about last time was unique and was a good twist, because I didn't see that coming. So it did get me there. But the last two bosses, I want to talk about actually the Wasserman, the second to last boss. I don't know if this was intentional. Maybe he's probably based on some like European myth or something like that. But his design was ugly as fuck. And I don't mean ugly as fuck in like an interesting way. I mean just ugly as fuck is like, I'm like, is this really the last boss? Like one of the adventurers outside Wasserman's arena even says like, wow, like no spoilers or anything, but I've seen some pictures of Wasserman. He's pretty impressive. I'm like, oh wow, okay, this guy's gonna be pretty cool. Now, I don't know if that's a joke. Again, sometimes this game's humor right over my head. But I just did not find him intimidating. I think it only took me 2 tries. I won't say he was easy, but he was easy-ish. There were problems with Wasserman where I would try to like lock onto him, but the camera would try to lock onto his head, and Wasserman is huge, like he's a big guy. And so the camera's like up here, and I'm like trying to fight at his legs, right? So obviously that's a problem. So eventually I just had to lock off him, which mostly worked, but every now and then I would swing and miss. even though I was right next to him. So that could be a little frustrating. Some camera issues here and there. But overall, I had a good time with the game. I would recommend it on Game Pass or on a discount. I think it's like a $20 game, maybe 15, something like that. I think we've discussed a lot of the pros and cons for it already, so I'm not going to go into too much more depth. But I'll just say overall, I enjoyed it. It's not going to be my top 10, but I did think it was a pretty good game, and I'll definitely be looking forward to whatever game the studio comes out with next, because this, I believe, was their first game, which is really impressive. So, yeah, hopefully even better game next time. I'm surprised how much, honestly, this game had a lot going against me, because I'm not always into dungeon crawlers as much as I love D&D or love a good CRPG. I don't always love, going from dungeon to dungeon to dungeon. You've at least got to dress it up and do different things with it. But this game had a lot of variety, and all the worlds looked really different. A lot of the dungeons were really cool. I like that Louisa really had to make a difficult choice that, at least initially, seemed, it got less ambivalent over time, but at first at least seemed like a really big choice that was going to cost people, money and jobs and opportunities, and seemed hypocritical and all these other stuff. So it was a good motivating force. As we went on, it was clear that to anybody, I think, with half a brain, that one choice had to be made and not the other. Not that you have a choice anyway. But yeah, I blabbed enough. It was a pretty good game. I recommend it. I'd pick it up for like $15-$20 maybe. I don't know how much it is right now on Steam, but I would look around that price point. It being a platformer and a dungeon crawler and a puzzle game, all three things I'm not always fond of, but this game still managed to be a pretty good game for me. So I think for people who like that genre, this game is going to be awesome.
Awesome. So what I've been playing is the World of Warcraft War Within pre-patch, which, because the new expansion comes out in a couple weeks at the end of August. And I want to say the pre-patch at first was really bad, arguably the worst pre-patch they've ever done in the history of World of Warcraft, which is, it's been around since 2004. But they fixed it, and the timer is a lot better, and I like it spawns in every hour instead of every 90 minutes. And I've been having a good time gearing up and getting ready for the new expansion, which I'm excited about. All the promises that they made are promising, and I'm glad that they're listening to the fans. I feel like they've listened to the fans better in the last, I don't know, year or so. Like they're quicker to like fix things. They listen to the feedback, and other, Blizzard back in like Shadowlands was like just ignoring people outright and just doing whatever they wanted. And it was very greedy. They've been a lot better. I mean, it's still there, but it's a lot better than it was. Still a lot of like, they like to throw in some store mounts and microtransaction things you can buy, but those are all optional, so that doesn't really affect anything. But I'm having a blast like I always do. World of Warcraft is my top 6 favorite game of all time. I've put more hours into WoW than any other game in the history of gaming. Like my gaming life, like I've probably put 20,000, 30,000 hours in that game. I've been playing since I was in 6th grade, so I will always be playing WoW on and off. Sometimes I'm in the mood for it, and sometimes I'm not. It's a great game in the middle of like when like there's no really game releases, and I'm not really in the mood to play anything. I kind of just want to play MMO. It's beautiful. So the pre-patch is pretty good. I recommend it if you want to catch up for some gear, experience it. It's nothing major, but the expansion comes out in a couple weeks, so. Yeah, so I've been having a fun time with that. I got into I bought Star Wars Bounty Hunter, the remaster that came out on Friday. It is a remaster of a PS2 game from 2002. It's from Asper, the people that made, the people that do the typical remasters of old games like all the Star Wars games and Tomb Raider. They did the Battlefront collection this year, which was not well received and it was not good. But this one, fortunately, was good. It is a good game. They did a good job polishing it very well. I think the graphics look good. They did a great job making it look a lot better, a lot shinier. It looks clear. it ran really well on my PC, which is a 4080. Like, it ran well. I had no issues. I don't recall what the frame rate was, but I don't remember because I didn't look at the number for some reason for this game, but it seemed like it was smooth. I didn't have any issues with the frame rate. It played very well. I was very happy with it. Also, it played very well on the Steam Deck. Really, really good. It's a great handheld game as well. Let's see. So they updated the control scheme, because the control scheme on the old game was not good at all. It was frustrating at times. The camera was bad. They gave it a more modern control scheme. It feels a lot more like a typical third person shooter now. It's a lot more accessible to a modern audience. So people who are into this will be really into it, because obviously we don't have that many shooting oriented bounty hunter kind of Star Wars games. They always tend to be like a vehicle, spaceship, and Jedi focused.
Side note, isn't it wild that they never made a Mando game, like especially during like the height of like Grogu, Baby Yoda, the craze for that back in like 2018, 19, whenever that was.
Yeah.
It's just wild to me. They never made a game.
It
just feels like that would be the perfect successor to this.
Yeah, the closest thing we ever got to that was Star Wars 1313, which was, I think it was like a bounty hunter focus, but it got canceled when Disney bought Star Wars. So maybe someday Star Wars Outlaw is very smuggler shooting based, and maybe we'll see something like it in the future. But yeah, I agree. It's time for a bounty hunter game. It's crazy. We've never gotten like a Boba Fett game. Like, because you don't even play as Boba Fett in this game, you play as Jango Fett.
Think about this. Bro got his own like comic book series and TV series before he got a video game. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, it's, I don't know. That's wild to me. Like, there was a time where you couldn't go around a corner without getting asked for your lunch money from a Star Wars game. Like, back in the 90s and 2000s, Star Wars was almost everywhere in terms of video game space. They made so many like games for kids. They made so many games for adults and everybody in between. Like, it was wild, and we never got a Boba Fett game out of all that, which is weird.
It's probably we will at some point. Maybe not Boba Fett. I don't know, but because Disney's leasing out Star Wars to different developers now, so maybe in the future we will get a bounty hunter Mandalorian focused game. Which Mandalorians are my favorite aspect of Star Wars. So this game plays well. It's not perfect. Some of the platforming is janky, especially when you're like climbing on the walls and you're leaping across platforms like Prince of Persia, and it doesn't register all the time. And especially when you have to jump backwards, and you know one of those sections where you're holding onto a ledge and then they want you to jump backwards to jump on the other ledge. It doesn't always register that well, and the jetpack is pretty good. It gives you enough time to like fly across voids and whatever, but sometimes it can be janky or it can glitch and like it will shut down midway, like, and you'll fall to your death, and you only get 5 continues in the level. So if you die 5 times, you get a game over for the level, and you have to restart the whole level from the beginning. And this game is one of the hardest Star Wars games I've ever played. The first half, it feels like a joke. It's like, oh, this is super easy, and then all of a sudden they just swarm so many enemies at you that like you get overwhelmed, and it gets really challenging by like the midway point of the game. Like really challenging because there's just too many enemies on screen, and you're getting constantly blasted by like a turret. You're getting blasted by like 7 guys in the area, and like your health goes down like really fast. It's like playing Halo or something on Legendary. It's like you die so fast. You have to like really strategize how you're gonna tackle like that roam. Because like I said, it wouldn't be too bad if you didn't have like a continue live system. Like that's what I don't like. Is like you only get 5 lives to do a level. If they didn't have that, then it wouldn't be that bad. But since you like if you lose like 5 times, you have to start the whole level over again, and it's just frustrating at times. But in the boss battles in this game are very, very oversimplified, like just laughably, like they're outdated. It's from 2002, and it's literally like your spaceship shoots at you, and all you do is strafe to the left or the right and shoot, and that's it. Like there's nothing more to it than that. They're very generic. The cutscenes look really good. I think they're good. They did a great job polishing it up. I mean, it still looks like an old game, of course, but like it looks cleaner. Like you do a comparison of how it was in 2002. It's like night and day. They did a good job with that. I think the story in this game is pretty good. I think Jango Fett's a likable character. Jango Fett's a cool character. We didn't really get a lot of screen time for him in Attack of the Clones. He was, he was basically he was like a side character, right? Like he was more of a plot device. How getting the clones going and everything. This expands on his story, like what he does on the side, like in his life. It kind of builds up to like wanting to have a legacy with like Boba Fett and stuff, and it's cool because Boba Fett's a clone of him. It's just he adopts him as a son. Yeah, it's a cool like game to play if you're a big Star Wars fan, like because it's a very unique setting, like because it's a prequel focused Attack of the Clones 2002 game. Like this is a different era, like this is like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and it's like 2000.
Damn, you took my joke. I was just about to make.
But what I mean is like we've been doing the sequel trilogy, and we've seen Clone. This is like pre Revenge of the Sith, pre Clone Wars show, pre everything after that, and so it's like it's a different era. It's like a complete like era when I was like 9 years old kind of thing. So, but it's cool. It's cool that they developed Jango Fett. Jango Fett's a cool character. And what else? Oh yeah. And it was $20. It's kind of overpriced, $20. I got it for $17 on a website. It was on sale on Steam for like $17. I think $15 is a good price for it. I mean, it's only $5 more. It's worth playing. It's a 8 to 12 hour game, depending on your skill level. Like if you're flying through the game, then maybe you can speed run it through like 5 to 6 hours. But for most people, it's probably going to be between 8 to 15 hours, but probably 12. And if you want all the collectibles, because there is bounties in this game where like each level will have like, you can scan a person, NPC, and it'll say what bounty they are, like how much they're worth. And you basically wrap them up and capture them to get money. But so if you want to 100% the game, it's going to be a lot longer than that, probably in the 20s to 30 hours, but it's not a long game. I beat it a long time ago on the PS4, like way back. It's still one of the rarest trophies I ever unlocked on PlayStation. So I don't know how many people are gonna play it this time, but we'll see. It's worth playing.
What did you think about the bounty hunting itself? Like, was it fun, or did you enjoy it? Or
you mean like the capturing of people?
Like the capturing of people. I've heard mixed things. Like I read a review from Kotaku that said it was pretty tedious, but I didn't know what you thought about it.
It's very tedious. It's not that good.
Yeah.
It's not. It's all right. It's kind of tacked on. I like it. It would have been better if they just focused on being a third person shooter.
Right.
Like you don't have to do it. It's optional. It sucks
because it's optional. It sucks on one hand because it kind of gives the game its flavor, right? If you don't have the bounty hunting, how much of a bounty hunter game is it really? But the bounty hunter gameplay, from what I understand, isn't like super fun, as you just said. But and then what did you think about the weapon variety? Because what I've seen from the reviews is mostly that your trusty blaster is pretty much all you need. Like maybe sometimes you're going to want to use a grenade or a flamethrower for like large waves, but for the most part, because your blasters are infinite and they fire as fast as you can press the buttons, that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah, the blasters are pretty much what you're gonna use like most of the time, but when you get swarmed with enemies, especially the ones that are like melee based, it's better to use the fire because the fire is so OP. Like if they get near you, you just blast them, and then they run out, they catch on fire, and they just run around in panic on fire, and they die. So it really comes in handy when you're getting like 7 enemies like around you. It doesn't obviously controlling the fire, the flamethrower is not that good. So like it's really hard to like aim. So obviously when you're fighting someone that has a gun, you don't want to use that unless you're like, because like I don't know how to word that. Like it's not good because it's really hard to aim with a person who has a gun, and if you're getting shot off like shot by like 7 people, like it's not good. But like when you're getting attacked by melee people, it's good. And the grenade sucks. Like I think the aiming for the grenade really is bad. Like I feel like I'm throwing it at a distance and it doesn't go that far. and I feel like it hurts me more.
Yeah, I saw a clip of it, and it was like dreadfully short. I also saw that switching weapons, there's no real way to like hotkey it or like
Yeah.
make it quick. And this is maybe this is a small thing. I don't know. I haven't played it, but you've got to like go into a menu and stuff. Like you can't just switch around your weapons or whatever. You've got to. So that just incentivizes you to stick with your flamethrower or blaster.
You can switch your weapons like in game. It's just that you have to hit a button like go up like to switch like that.
Yeah. It's just kind of cumbersome, but it's not like impossible.
But only if you play with a controller. If you play with a mouse, like, I did both. You just use the wheel of the mouse, and that played a lot better. But it still was tedious to switching weapons. And then there was like a grenade launcher or whatever that came in handy at some parts. But the problem is like all the explosive items hit you too, and you die so fast. Like it always, usually you kill yourself. Basically, they don't really help you that much unless you're shooting at a distance. So once in a while, it comes in handy, but for the most part, you're gonna use the pistols. The pistols have unlimited ammo, so you can just spam it and run around and shoot. But there's so many enemies on screen that you can't always just rely on the pistols. Maybe other people find this game easier. I think this game was challenging midway. Like I feel like there's just way too many enemies for what this game was. Just because of the hitbox in this game, like your health bar is just, you die so fast. Like this game, it feels like there's a disconnect between how much enemies they put in the game and like how much health you have. Like if your health restored like Halo, you take cover and it kind of just regenerates on its own, it would have been a lot better. But this game forces you to collect like little blue health items to get your health back, like old school. When an enemy dies,
do you have to use back to packs? Is it a back to pack or is it something else?
No, it's just like it's just like a little jar of medical, and you just pick it up. It's like like enemy, like different, like enemies will die and they'll drop.
I'm thinking of the Republic Commando game where you have to go to back to stations. And stuff.
Not like that. It's more like you know, like when you play like Battlefront and you kill an enemy and they just drop like a blue health item, you just pick it up.
Okay.
Or like in a first person shooter, like to be scattered around. That's what makes it harder. Because like when you're like low health, it's like you can't find any health, and it only takes just one shot to kill you, and that was frustrating. But it's a good game. I don't know if I can recommend it for a non Star Wars fan, because it's a remaster of an old game. I think people will still like it, but I don't see.
It's also unfortunately not canon anymore because of them destroying the. Not that should really impact your enjoyment of the game anyway. Like. I think a lot of this stuff, from what I've heard about the story, should be taken as canon anyway. I mean, they even got the voice actor, I forget his name, but he's always great, as Django, and they got him back for it. So I don't really see why. I don't know, that stuff. That part of Star Wars also bothers me, that they just made all the expanded universe. Disney did, I mean, made all the expanded universe just immediately non-canon, which makes this game non-canon. But yeah, so that blows. But yeah, I don't know. I was tempted to pick up this game, but I looked at the reviews and they were pretty like 7s, 6s, maybe a couple 8s. And that just didn't really move me. I didn't even know about the life counter thing. That sounds incredibly frustrating. I've heard a lot about the enemy variety too, and that it's just like all like random thugs like shooting, which is fine to a point. That's fine. Obviously, I don't need everybody to be like in The Last of Us Part 2, where everybody's got a name and a backstory and whatever.
It's old
school.
But like they didn't have that.
It's very old school. It's very old school. So there's going to be some old school problems. But so yeah, I don't think I'll play this one unless it's on deep discount or is on Game Pass or something. But so unless that happens, I probably won't play it. But I am glad that it came back out with a remaster. I think that's awesome. Django's a really cool character. His actor is awesome. So yeah, I just think this is awesome for Star Wars fans. I wish they would have done a remake. It really seems like what the game needed, especially after 20 plus years, was a remake, not a remaster. But Aspyr doesn't really do remakes. I know that they were working on the KOTOR one, but we don't even know what's going on with that at this point.
Yeah, the KOTOR one is the remake they were working on, and but otherwise they just do remasters. I think it's cool to have. I think it's good for game preservation to remaster this. This is like
absolutely.
This is one of the most underrated Star Wars games. It's a pretty good game. I think it's definitely one of the most underrated Star Wars games. And it's actually, I would say it's worth playing if you're a Star Wars fan. Like this is like one of those hidden Star Wars, like hidden gems, the Star Wars games that people, if you're a Star Wars fan, you should play it.
I remember I went over to my cousin's house for Easter, and he had a Nintendo GameCube, and I played it a little bit on that, and I had a lot of fun. I got super lost in those levels, had no idea what I was doing, but anytime I was able to do gameplay, I really enjoyed myself. So, like I said, if it ever goes on Game Pass or goes on deep discount, I'll probably pick it up, give it a shot. I mean, if I don't like it, I'll just drop it. But August is pretty loaded for me, so I'm not gonna make time for it right now. Plus, even when I was playing a pretty good game like Dungeons of Hinterberg, in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, but I could be playing Dragon Age. So, so that's where I'm at right now. But I hope everybody gives this game a shot for sure. Maybe if enough people buy it, Aspire will actually invest more into the remaster or remake situation, or maybe we'll just get a brand new Mando game, because I can't believe they've never done that.
They're getting to the point where they've remastered so many Star Wars games. There's only so many left.
Yeah, they're gonna have to start making like Luke Skywalker learns his 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah, like so we'll see what they remaster next, but it's cool that this game is out. It's like a 7 out of 10. I recommend it to Star Wars fans. I would not recommend it. I don't think it's going to appeal to like a general audience. This is
very niche.
It's gonna be very niche. Even the original back in the day was niche. I played it.
Yes.
I rented it from Blockbuster like randomly. I didn't even know about it, but I was only a kid, of course. But I didn't finish it at the time because I found it confusing. The levels were confusing. I mean, now it's pretty straightforward. I think like there's some the parts of the level where they want you to like go an event. Everybody doesn't tell you to go an event. You have to figure it out.
There's some doors too that are like completely unmarked, and like the game just expects you to know where to go, even though it gives you no direction. That kind of stuff would drive me crazy.
Yeah, they're definitely in this game, but it's not like something that takes you like 15-20 minutes to figure out. It's more tedious than anything.
It's also like we have the benefit of technology. Like we're not living in 2002 or whatever anymore, right? So we it's not like we only have GameFAQs. Like we have Wow, GameFAQs is still around somehow. I still use that for some of the Dragon Age Origins discussions. Like, there are discussions from 14 years ago or something that are still helpful to me. Anyway.
I use YouTube. Yeah, if I'm stuck somewhere, I just use YouTube. But
yeah, I just do a general search, and then if I can't figure it out through there, then I go to YouTube.
I need a visual. The words don't work for me anymore.
Sometimes I need a visual as well. But yeah. What was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. But I'll be awaiting a discount for this game. I think it's at 20 or 17 right now, you said. So I'll probably wait for it to be at like 10 or even lower. I think most I could probably hope for is 10. I still haven't seen Stellar Blade drop in prices, which is a bummer. But I think that's because it's an exclusive. So I don't know. Sometimes you just wait a long time and wait for your chance.
I think Republic Commando was like $5 on sale.
So. That was such a good deal. I bought it for $5. I replayed it. That game still rules. Great game.
This will probably be $5 in the future.
Right.
All right.
Anyway,
let's move on now to our last topic of the night. So in honor of Comic-Con, which is a lot of big news that happened, especially in Marvel, like Robert Downey Jr. being Doctor Doom, which was a big controversy. People were pissed.
Can't believe you.
And because Marvel had to pivot and change their whole strategy because of the Jonathan Majors thing.
That was like the most wrestling moment I've ever seen before. Like somebody takes off their mask and the crowd pops and look, oh. But yeah, it absolutely like gave me like big wrestling feels. But yeah, so in honor of that, we're going to talk about our favorite or best superhero games. We're only going to do a top 5. We're going to keep it pretty brief, and we're trying to limit it to. I'm limiting it to one superhero and one franchise. But I don't know if Seb's doing both of those, but yeah, I got a top 5.
I did one game per franchise because if I did not, the whole list would just be Spider-Man and Batman. It's not mine's not necessarily one superhero only, but it's like it basically is, I guess, and it's because mine are mostly team based. So, Dory, you could start with yours. What would be your number 5?
This was a tough list for me to make just because some of the games I haven't played, some superhero games I just missed out on, like Ultimate Alliance, Midnight Suns. Like I haven't played those games. I do have Midnight Suns because I believe it was free on Epic Game Store or something, so I have it.
And it's like dirt cheap now too.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap now. Got pretty decent, good reviews and was widely acclaimed, but just didn't sell a lot.
It was in my
but anyway,
it was in my top 10 games of the year when it came out.
Yeah,
it was that good.
So the last or first two games I'll mention, which are 5 and 4. Okay. I'm not going to mention 4 yet, but are just kind of like they're great games, but I haven't played them in a long time, so take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
So this one's from my childhood. I don't think I've gone back to play it. I really should at some point. But Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, I loved as a kid. Oh my God. To get a really cool Incredible Hulk story, to get a well-written, largely based on the comics, not the Incredible Hulk movie game, which had this very painful cell sections with Bruce Banner. No, I'm talking about Ultimate Destruction, where you are pretty much Hulk 99% of the time. And you could, look at this. Look, all I need to say about this fucking game is that you could turn a car, snap it in half, and turn it into goddamn gauntlets. Or you can ride a bus like a fucking skateboard, like you're Tony Hawk. Like, oh God, like rest in peace to, I forget, Pandemic, I think, made this. I forget who. I forget what studio made it, but they're no longer around anymore, unfortunately. But they had such a creative vision for this game. You could turn anything into a weapon. You could obviously destroy buildings. You could wreck cars, wreck people. I mean, it was just, there is nothing better in this world than grabbing a little soldier grunt, picking him up, hearing him go, oh, no, and just like fucking booting him to like the other side of Kansas. It was so validating. And the story was actually good. Like, a lot of it was very psychological, as any good Incredible Hulk story should be. About Bruce dealing with his inner demons, literally, and Jekyll Hyde stuff that's going on. And then, of course, you had Abomination. You had a lot of like classic Incredible Hulk villains.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta go now. I've like discovered that I need to go replay this game because this game fucking rules. But I loved it as a kid. I remember getting this game and Spider-Man 2, the movie game, around the same time, and my little nerd self was in heaven. So I was a very happy person.
Yes, I love both those games. The whole game I especially love. It classic game. I rented it from Blockbuster. It was a different time back then when I would randomly discover games just by renting them. And I was like, ooh, a Hulk game. And yeah, that game was so awesome. Like it had the best Hulk combat ever. And it's crazy. Yeah. Amazing we never got anything like that again. Like
I know, and I think it sold pretty well. I don't remember, but Radical Entertainment, not Pandemic. Radical Entertainment.
Yeah, Radical Entertainment is the same people that made Simpsons Hit and Run, that Scarface game, and Prototype 1 and 2. They're still around, but they're owned by Activision now, and they're just like a support studio now, I believe. So they're still around, but they're like more support. They're not like what they used to be. So they have a history. They have a history of open world ish games where you just have a lot of destruction, especially like Prototype. Which Prototype also is not on my list, but Prototype is also one of the best superhero games. 1 and 2, definitely worth playing if you're into those kind of games. But yeah, that's a great choice. Definitely one of the most underrated games ever. The whole game is incredible. Ultimate Destruction.
I don't even think there's a way, unless you have a PS. No. Maybe on the PS5, which has some PS2 backwards compatibility. I don't know if there's any way to play it. Is what I'm trying to say.
It's only on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. So you'd have to emulate it. The only way to play it right now is emulation.
Yeah, but that's a real bummer.
Don't be surprised if they ever remaster it. But Activision owns it, so yeah, I don't. They would have to do that. It was acquired by Vivendi Games, I think they owned. Didn't they own Crash Bandicoot? Or maybe
I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering. Anyway, that's a great choice. No, Vivendi was Universal. Yeah. Because Universal owns the rights to the Hulk. So even to this day, Marvel cannot make a Hulk solo movie. Disney has to make a partnership with Universal, so they have to. He can only be a side character in a movie. Anyway, That's a great choice. Let me talk about mine now. My number 5 would be Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the first one. A lot of people have the second one too, but the first one was the main one. I think the first game is better. I think it has better reviews too. Um, it was an awesome game because you can like team up with any character from like Marvel, and like you get bonus points for like forming teams. It's one of the best multiplayer games ever. My friends and I used to play the hell out of this game on Xbox 360, and it was cool mixing matching characters. Like you can build up any character you wanted. You go anywhere from like Daredevil and Elektra and Ghost Rider and X-Men and Spider-Man and Venom, and it was a really awesome game. I really like all three of them. Really, the third one is a Switch exclusive. That was fun too. But the first one is especially nostalgic to me. It's really awesome, fun to play game. I think it still holds up. I would really love a remaster or even like a new game in this franchise. I'm curious how that would work with Disney and everything. But it was a really great game. I'm not usually the biggest fan of top down view like beat 'em up kind of games, but I really loved the gameplay in this game. This is one of those games you can just pick up and play. Like anyone can play. Even to this day, I think anyone would really enjoy this game, especially if you're into Marvel. I think if I remember correctly, my main character was Spider-Man, of course, because Spider-Man is my favorite. But I really enjoyed this game. I beat it several times. Yeah, it's one of the best games. I know a lot of people are waiting for another one or at least a remaster. It's time to remaster it. I don't remember who made it. Let me check. Ultimate Alliance. I think it was Activision too. Yeah, Activision. That was Raven Software. Basically they just make Call of Duty now, but at the time,
Yeah, they also made KOTOR 2. That's what I was talking about earlier.
yeah. But now they're just the Call of Duty studio so makes it so. Um, Activision owns a lot of awesome superhero games, and then an Xbox owns. So hopefully Xbox is the one that could save these games and bring them out and remaster them. I guess it's time. But I guess I don't know if they had to get permission with Disney or not, but we'll see. But I would love to see a new one come out. But like, if you want to get a feel for it and you have a Switch, definitely play Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, which is a Switch exclusive. And that was developed by Team Ninja. People that made Neo and Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden and all that. That game is more cel shaded and everything, but it's really worth playing. It's not as well liked. It's got mixed reviews, but I had a good time with it. All right, Dory, what is your number 4?
My number 4. Sorry about the dramatic pause. I had to unmute myself. I was looking up totally legal and safe ways to play Ultimate Destruction. Or again, totally legal and safe. Anyway, another game that I don't have to look up that for is called Infamous. Now this I know this is not your classic traditional superhero game, but it is a superhero game. You have to make a lot of moral choices. I had a lot of good fun with this. I didn't enjoy Second Son as much. I thought Second Son was okay, but it wasn't as fun for me as the first game. I know some people really love Second Son, think it's underrated or whatever. I just thought it was okay. And some of the powers are really cool, but I found the main character insufferable and the story largely forgettable, and the open area dull and uninteresting. But anyway, the original Infamous, though, had a really cool story. Yes, the main character wasn't tremendous or anything, but he was better. I think Desmond, I forget his name. Maybe I'm thinking of Assassin's Creed. But anyway, all these like I can't say that about Second Son, actually, because he's based on Native American, right? Even though he's voiced by Troy Baker. Anyway, Infamous was really fun. I played it on my PS4, I think, or maybe PS3 a bunch of years ago. I had a really good time with it. The electric powers are so fun. There is almost nothing in this world better than sliding and gliding around on those electrical wires and like seeing how far and how fast you can go on them when you're on like power lines and stuff like that. That was the word I was looking for. And that's just such fun movement. The movement was like part of the reason why the Infamous games were so well liked. The moral choices was really cool. You didn't have a lot of superhero games like that where you could be the villain, right? Because you'd have, games like Spider-Man or, team up games like you just mentioned, Ultimate Alliance, and those are awesome, but you always have to be the hero. You can never be the villain. So this introduced a new element that was very, narrative focused, BioWare-esque, if you will, or just choice-based, really. And introduced that dimension, and that was really cool. Of course, I'm a big weenie. Weenie Hut Jr. I can never be mean to video game characters because I feel bad. Generally speaking, right? I'm not saying I'm a perfect angel and I never make mistakes in video games or whatever. But I was pretty much a good guy through and through in Infamous. Maybe one or two times. I can count on one hand how many times I maybe did something questionable in that game. But overall, I still liked it. Even if it was a simplified morality model and it was just black and white, good or bad, I still liked it for what it was and enjoyed it. Infamous number 4 for me.
What did you think of the second game?
I never got around to the second game. And I hear it's better, so I would like to play it at some point, but I just never got around to it.
Yeah, the second game is better, I think, than the first one. But the first one's a good game. I really enjoy, I like Cole. I think Cole is an underrated character. He's the main character.
Cole, right? That's his name.
And it has Karma system was ahead of its time. It was back in the PS3 era. I would love this. Sucker Punch would go back to this franchise, but obviously they're working on Ghost of Tsushima too, which I love. Ghost of Tsushima is awesome. I would love to see them go back to Infamous and Sly Cooper, but in the meantime, Infamous is a great game. I think it holds. I played it a couple years ago on PS Plus, and I really enjoyed it. I was streaming it too, and obviously the stream was amazing because back the PS Now was their servers were not great, but I got through it, and yeah, if you want to play Infamous 1 and 2, you can stream it on PS Plus if you have a subscription. But obviously you can play it on emulator too. It's a good game. It really holds. I think it holds up. It feels dated in terms of visuals and some of the gameplay is a little dated, but for the most part you'll have a good time with it. I think it's good. All right, that's a good choice. All right, for me, number 4 would be Guardians of the Galaxy, the one we got a couple years ago. Big shock. My expectations for this game were so terribly low. I thought this game was going to be bad, probably, and I think the trailers didn't really do it justice. But the actual game itself was very good. Not only was it very good, it was like my top 5 game of that year. I love the characters, like the interactions between the characters were like on par with the movies. They did such a great job building every character up, and the story was so strong, and there was a lot of
build up is killing me, Seb. What fucking game is this?
I already said Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, you already said Guardians. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say that, and so I was like, wow, he's really milking this. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy, they really did a great job building up the characters, especially Rocket. It was on par with the movies. The gameplay was not the greatest gameplay ever, but it was still. I still had a good time with it. I love the special combo you can do, build up and all that, and the characters felt different. I'm going off the top of my head, but the characters felt different enough and everything. Like I said, it wasn't anything memorable in the gameplay, but I think everything about the game was so memorable in terms of the music. The soundtrack was great. Story elements, the levels were the different levels were unique enough, and the character interactions were all unique enough that the game. This is one of the examples where the gameplay wasn't the greatest, but it didn't matter because everything else was so strong. But even when I say that though, the gameplay was still good. It wasn't bad or anything. Yeah. It just wasn't it just wasn't incredible. It was good.
Sure.
Dory, what did you think about it? I know you.
Yeah, actually, that's next on my list, so I might as well just talk about it now. I will never get over how we all saw that trailer. You, me, James, and Mitch all saw that trailer and went, "What is this fucking shit? This looks terrible. What are they doing? They're mixing Guardians of the Galaxy with Telltale, which they've already done before, so risky move, right? I know nobody bought that game, but still, except risky move. Right, except Seb. Seb's a weirdo and a nerd.
I platinum.
Right, any platinum. Jesus Christ, Seb.
You get a platinum just for beating it, though, just because.
Oh, that's true. It's Telltale. That's true. I think Telltale Batman was one of my first platinums too. I love Telltale Batman. We're not going to talk about it on this list, but I fucking love it. It's so underrated. It's so good. Anyway, Guardians is so good. Does not get the love it deserves. I don't think it'll ever get the love it deserves. It really shouldn't have been as good as it was, but they just did it so well. Honestly, I compare it, and other people have done this comparison too, to Mass Effect 2 in some ways, with the ways that you go into a mission, come back to your spaceship, talk to all your teammates, and further their personal missions. And then you kind of have that loop of going into a mission, going back, and it's written so well. The soundtrack is really good. Maybe it's not as expansive as it could be, but music licensing fees and rights and stuff, I get. It kind of sucks that James Gunn has forever associated Guardians of the Galaxy with like having a banger soundtrack. Because now everybody, whoever makes anything Guardians of the Galaxy, be like, guys, it doesn't matter how well you act. If our music isn't dope as shit, like this movie's gonna suck. And then the licensing fees are gonna be off the charts too, no matter what. Anyway, it was written so well. The characters were so good. There were teases of other universes. The main villains, the backstory for Star-Lord was handled so well. Rocket Raccoon, who's probably my favorite Guardian, just was done incredibly, like Seb said. As dialogue box or whatever the fuck we were, our collective expectations were so low, and yet it was our game of the year, just because we all agreed it was so solid and so good at pretty much everything it did, with the exception of maybe combat. Yeah. And I think I was like slightly higher on the combat than others.
It was our collective game of the year. It
was our collective game of the year, yes, not our personal games of the year. It was our consensus. But I just think that's so... I'll never stop talking about it. I know I've mentioned this before here and probably elsewhere, or elsewhere and probably here. But like, just to go from like just such a bad-looking trailer, which really did it no favors, to our consensus game of the year is what a journey, right? Cinderella story.
Yeah.
But it's so good. And honestly, at some point, I probably want to go back to it because I loved it that much. I thought it was an excellent game. It wasn't perfect. It had some issues. You could say that the characters talked a little bit too much every now and then. And also that, like Seb said, the combat wasn't the greatest. But everything else was so good. The graphics really worked for me. The writing, the characters, the music, of course. I just thought it was such a fun time. So heartfelt too. I mean, which is so important for a Guardians story, because it's about a found family, right? And I mean, I know the found family trope is really old now, but I mean, it's done so well here. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is my number 3.
Yeah, this is my number 4. Number 4. Eidos Montreal, you're forgiven for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. For this
yes. Game. I mean, I'll never really forgive them for that, because I had to fucking stream that. And I mean, God, you can still look at my highlights on my YouTube channel of me slowly realizing how shit of a game that is. I will never stop being bitter towards Eidos Montreal for that fucking game. I hate that game so much.
Their history is very up and down.
Checkered.
It's like
it's a roller coaster. Deus Ex, but this was so
Tomb
good.
Raider, and then it's like the Thief 2014, bad. Deus Ex Mankind Divided up again. Shadow of the Tomb Raider down again. Marvel's Avengers, they didn't make that, but they supported it. Right. And then Guardians of the Galaxy again, and now they're working on Fable with Playground. God
only knows how that's gonna go, but yeah, I hope for good things. I never played Fable, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But what's your number 3?
So just to be clear, my number 5 was Marvel Ultimate Alliance. My number 4 was Guardians of the Galaxy. So my number 3 is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Nice. New Age of Heroes. Obviously, one of the greatest fighting games ever, or maybe the best. Some people consider it the greatest fighting game of all time. We're getting a collection soon, so if you don't believe me, definitely play it. It's incredible. People to this day play the hell out of this game. It has a strong audience. It's had fighting competitions to this day. It's a really, really awesome fighting game. It has a great cast of characters. I know this is kind of, I don't know if this is cheating or not, because it's not really it's a fighting game. But it's definitely one of the best superhero games.
It's got superheroes in it. I think it's
because I would have said that, or Injustice 2, which is also a fighting game. And it's a great. I don't know what to say. It ages so well. Like, this game is really, really old. I was a little kid when I played it. and it still holds up extremely well, as people are going to see on the Switch and PC and PS5, not Xbox for some reason. It's not coming to Xbox for whatever reason, the collection. So that was a big controversy during the Summer Game Fest.
Xbox in the mud.
Yeah, no, that was very strange. Anyway, it's incredible. Dory, if you never played it before, I can't recommend it more. I mean, not in a fighting game. I
probably played it in an arcade or something, but I never got into it. But I always thought the art style was really cool. Mm-hmm. And I always wished I could play those kind of games and be good at them. I always loved how they drew Spider-Man. Spider-Man was always one of my mains whenever I played any kind of Capcom versus Marvel. I can't say I've specifically played that one, but I know I've played various games throughout my time in arcades over the course of my life. But yeah, I'll talk about my number 2.
Go ahead.
My number 2 is Arkham City. I love Arkham City a lot.
Before you continue on, that's my number 1, just to be clear.
Okay, great. There was thankfully no game that came after Arkham City that involved the Batmobile way too much and dumb twists in the story that I did not care for.
Still a good game, though. I think Arkham Knight is still a good game for the most part.
I should probably give it a shot at some point, although I always say that and I never do it. My dog's very upset right now because people exist outside our house, and he's very upset about that. Anyway, I love Arkham City. I went back to it on Steam, I want to say, and I put a lot of hours into it. I want to say 15, 20 hours, maybe more. I played some of the the optional levels too. I really, really enjoy it a lot. I think the story is so masterfully done. It's honestly amazing how much they give you all the clues. It's a perfect mystery. It's a perfect writing in that way. They give you all of the pieces right there, and you just have to put it together. And when it does come together at the end, and you see that, it's just amazing. The Catwoman DLC is really good. Of course, she's very unnecessarily sexy, but she's also Catwoman, so I don't know. You can make an argument there. The Riddler trophies are stupid. I just ignore those. As anybody who's sane should. That is just depraved. I understand being an achievement trophy person, but Riddler trophies are bonkers.
Yeah, even for me, it was way too much. I would not.
Sorry about that.
I would not put a lot of hours into collecting Riddler trophies in any game. I know people have done that, and I could never imagine myself doing that. So why Dory's handling her dog, I'll talk about the game myself. Arkham City is the greatest superhero game of all time. It's a masterpiece in so many ways. The gameplay is incredible. The visuals still hold up. The city looks amazing. The side content in this game is so good. There's so much great side content in this game. Everything just plays so well. The gameplay is so smooth. There's so many different ways you can tackle a room or a boss. You can be creative.
That Mr. Freeze fight is legendary. It's one of the best boss fights of all time.
Yes, and the storyline is a masterpiece. It's the greatest superhero storyline in a video game to this day. I love the relationship between Batman and the Joker, especially in the finale. Yes. It feels like the finale of Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, which obviously they recorded after that. But that felt like, I think it was supposed to be the finale for both of them, but they still did stuff after anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But it was amazing. There was so much build up, and I can't praise this game enough. I think this game is a must play for all superhero comic fans, and obviously if you like third person action games, this is one of the marquee games. This is not just the best superhero game in my opinion. This is one of the greatest games ever made. This is my top 30 games of all time.
It's an incredible game. It's my number 2, but it's really close between this one and my number 1. I think this is just an incredible work of art. It captures so much of that spirit of Batman the Animated Series, which is of course one of the best pieces of Batman media of all time. I just think this is a must play for anybody, really. If you love video games, even if you don't like superheroes, this is such a good game. Gameplay wise, it's so fun. The combat's so good. The gadgets are so good. All the moment to moment stuff is really good. Like you said, the side content, there's some really good stuff there. I just really can't get enough of this game. I've played it twice now, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, that's a lot. I don't usually go back to games to replay them unless I really love them or I want to go back and like see if it holds up or whatever, right? And I did it for both reasons, but it's affordable and it's easily playable still, which is awesome.
It's not just affordable. I mean, you can get the whole collection, the trilogy, for usually like $5. You get all 3 games in the trilogy for $5, and that includes all the DLC. Like, there's no reason not to get this game at this point.
And unfortunately, that doesn't include the second best game, Arkham Origins, but that's okay.
Besides Arkham Origins, Arkham Origins was not made by Rocksteady.
No, it wasn't.
But Origins
is by Montreal.
But Origins is the second best Arkham game. I have more of a connection with the first game because I grew up with Asylum more. It's more classic to me. But Origins is the second best one for sure. And I think Arkham. I think. Go ahead.
I think Asylum just in some places is really rough, especially with some of the sniper. Yeah. It's dated. Some of the sniper areas. Don't get me wrong, the plot's still incredible. The writing and the voice acting is really good, and of course that classic Arkham combat is still great. But there's some janky bits. They hadn't quite ironed out some things yet.
Yeah, most of the level designs are good in that game, except for like there's some sections that are like really not good.
Painful.
Yeah. And it's easy to get lost in that game, I feel like more.
Yes.
I don't recall having that issue with Arkham City. It's been a while since I played Arkham City. I will go through it because I was playing Origins this year. I will go through the whole Arkham series eventually again. So
I need to play Arkham Knight at one point. Most of my distaste for Arkham Knight comes from a Let's Play I watched, Team 4-Star, the people behind Dragon Ball Z Abridged at one point were streaming it on Twitch. And I just did not like the plot at all. In a lot of ways, some of the fake outs. And I didn't like the Batmobile sections either. So that was like a big turnoff for me.
Yes, the Arkham Knight, it's just the storyline is so predictable because you know exactly who the guy is. Like it's like so obvious if you know like the Batman story in any shape or form. And I didn't like how they kind of forced Joker back into the game again. A lot of people didn't like that either. And there was way too much Batmobile stuff. But overall, I think Arkham Knight was still a good game. And in fact, Arkham Knight still looks incredible. It looks way better than Gotham Knights did. And Arkham Knight came out in 2015, so 9 years ago. And it still holds up very well. Like, they did a masterful job with the environment. But Arkham City is the greatest superhero game of all time, in my opinion. It's gonna be hard to top it. There's one game that's close to it for me. Now I would have told you Spider-Man 2018 because Spider-Man 2018 Spider-Man's my absolute favorite superhero of all time. I love Batman. I have a Batman statue, just statues behind me. Spider-Man right next to me, but Spider-Man is he's my superhero. Like I relate to him.
Yes.
And all that. And so 2018 would have been Arkham City still would have been my number 1, but Spider-Man 2018 would have been my number 2 because that game blew me. That was the greatest Spider-Man game ever made. Even though there's a lot of great Spider-Man games, that was the greatest one. And then Miles Morales came out, and I would have said, I looking back on it, I think Miles Morales is objectively better than the first Spider-Man game because it did a lot of things better than it. And then Spider-Man 2, that came out last year, would be my number 2. Second best superhero game of all time because Spider-Man 2, which is also Dory's number 1 superhero game of all time, of course.
Spoilers.
Yep. And
no surprise.
Spider-Man 2, I think I know there's some criticisms about it from people, but I think it's the greatest superhero. It's the greatest Spider-Man game of all time because it improves on the first game. Traversal in this game is probably the best ever. Like I think the best part of this game was swinging around with Spider-Man. Like you can do so much in this game. Like, and I think they did a great job bringing New York City to life. Like even in 2018, it looked great, but they obviously with the better hardware because this was a PS5 only game. They were able to add more like pedestrians and cars, and the city felt more lively than the 2018 game. And you could swing around that game for hours and hours and hours. It's just incredible. But if you did want to fast travel in that game, the fast travel in that game was like instant. Like it was probably the best fast travel I've ever seen in a game. It was like literally you go across the map in like a second. Like that really showed the power of the SSD of the PS5. I'm curious how it's gonna play on the PC in that regard. And the storyline was good. I really enjoyed the whole Venom element. I really enjoyed Peter and Mary Jane's chemistry. Harry stuff, I mostly liked it. Though not, it wasn't perfect, but I mostly liked it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story overall. I thought the Mary Jane sections were a lot better than the first game. I thought the first game I didn't like. I felt like they.
God walks among New York City. Her name is Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah.
Her weapon of choice, a fucking taser.
She had better. She was stronger than like Ellie in Last of Us. Like she was straight up like.
She really was.
God, she
and Ellie need to like team up.
She was like Kratos.
Yeah,
like
she really was.
She was tanking guys. People were shooting me, and I was still like tanking bullets and just running up on people. And
she's like, I've got the power of free speech and free press on my side. I love even the Insomniac developers were like, well, I mean, either we get rid of her or we make her a god.
I appreciate it. They were just like, fuck it, we're just gonna make her. We're just gonna make her like a superhero character.
Yeah, she's basically OP. She went to some fucking fictional country and got a bunch of judo training so she could just take out guys behind their backs too.
I wasn't even stealthing anymore. I was just straight up running at people. Like I was playing full on Rambo. And it worked.
What's scarier, having Spider-Man himself run at you or Mary Jane Watson armed with Mary Jane Parker armed with a fucking taser?
Exactly. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, Spider-Man 2 is my number one. Look, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero of all time. I grew up with the TV shows, the '90s TV show. I grew up with the movies from Tobey Maguire. I even watched the Andrew Garfield one, and I credit the first movie with me figuring out that I wasn't straight. So Spider-Man's got like a lot of like really big importance for me. I just really relate to him. I mean, I think Spider-Man's his best when he's a down on his luck nerd, either in college or high school. I don't care. I don't have particular investment in that kind of debate, as long as he's not making deals with the devil. Anyway, sorry. Just remembered something and it just struck something in me. Anyway, but yeah. So, I mean, this game I love Spider-Man 2018. The stealth missions weren't great and some of the side missions weren't good. But then Miles Morales improved that, and then Spider-Man 2 improved on that again. And it's just really hard for me to not say that this is probably the best, not just one of the best, but probably the best superhero game. I can understand people saying Arkham City or some kind of niche option or something like you really love, I even saw some people on some forums saying like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or whatever, just because it's such a classic. But for me, I mean, I love how they did the symbiote stuff, Peter stuff, the Mary Jane, mixed that all together. I loved the combat in the late game. I don't know how spoilery we want to be here, but there's a section here that's just probably as close as we'll ever get to another Incredible Hulk game. It was so good. The story, I know some people complain about the story and think the pacing is bad. Yes, I do think they could have added a little bit more in terms of hours, but it didn't really hurt. The jokes were off the charts. I mean, who could ever forget when, Peter said, oh no, did you run out of honey or something like that, whatever the fuck he said. I forgot. But anyway, that's because I have shit memory. You guys don't have any excuse. You should remember that line and know what I'm talking about and laugh appropriately. But anyway.
So Spider-Man, like the side content was better in the second game because like the first game, I don't really like the side content in the first game. It was like catching pigeons and things like that. It was just not really appealing to me. The second game does a great job. I won't say great job. It does a good job with the side content. I really enjoyed a lot of the missions. I know it wasn't for everybody. I know people were complaining about it, but I really enjoy like helping the girl that was deaf, and I remember I like the prom story, and like those are Spider-Man kind of things. Like
those are very Spider-Man stories. I don't know like what people fucking want from Spider-Man. Like I know like he's all gone woke now, and there's deaf people and gay people and people dying of dementia or whatever. But like Spider-Man's always been like he's literally called your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like he's supposed to be in the neighborhoods helping people with small, like down-to-earth problems. Like that's why for me he's like the GOAT in terms of superheroes. Like he's helping relatable people with the relatable problems. and it's not like, oh, the Earth is about to be blown up, right? And I'm not against Spider-Man being in that position in the Avengers, but like I'm also I love when he goes back to his roots and he does friendly neighborhood stuff. And this game had a lot of that, and all of it pretty much clicked with me. I'm not going to say it was always a 5 out of 5 experience, but I always enjoyed whatever I was doing.
I think what really sold me on the side stuff was with the guy with the pigeon guy with
yes.
That scene was so
that had like an arc. That had like an arc. I couldn't believe it. They made a fucking arc with the pigeon guy and made me like really appreciate him, and I was like real fucking sad.
And then the other one with the guy with the dementia, like that was really heartfelt. Like that was like that's where this game shined, like the side content, like the first game did not have. And that's what Spider-Man is. Like Spider-Man is like he's an average guy that got like he's a nerdy guy that got powers, and he helps out his neighborhood. He's not fighting Thanos and big Avengers level style, villains. He's just helping out his neighborhood,
Like the biggest level that Spider-Man should generally be doing is trying to save New York. And if he is doing that, we should be at the end of the adventure. Like it shouldn't be like, oh yeah, this is the basic. Like no, like that's he's friendly neighborhood. Plus, like he shouldn't be defending all 5 boroughs. And
while we're on the topic of the story, I think they did a good job with Miles. I actually rather had played Miles over Peter. When I was playing the game, I played Miles as much as I could until I had to switch. I really enjoyed Miles' story in this game. That was my favorite aspect.
I thought his stuff with Mr. Negative was so good, so important.
Yes.
Dealing with grief and dealing with loss and wanting revenge, and there's a lot of like really good stuff in there that Miles goes through. That's really important for any person who's Spider-Man. Despite what those fucking nerds online who say he's not Spider-Man, he's Miles Morales. I love the way that they're laying up for the next game too. I think we're finally going to get a payoff from all those post-credit scenes, and they're going to introduce a new character for Miles to maybe superhero pal around with.
But
so I think they're doing really cool stuff.
I really hope they don't keep that suit though, because that suit he got at the end of the game,
it did not look good.
I do not like at all. It looks terrible.
No, it looks really bad. It looks really bad.
I know people are criticizing his haircut too, because they tend to give black characters the same Killmonger haircut.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I hope they get rid of that too. But a lot of people, I know that was a big criticism, but I think overall the storyline was done really well with. And
they could
Miles.
change Peter Parker's face back to the original. Have we talked about that before, Sal? I'm not sure if the internet's talked enough about that. How about the puddles? Have you heard about the puddles?
I remember that. Yeah. Peter's face was it was always fine to me. I think I think
it's fine.
I've seen his new face so many times now that I just got used to it.
It doesn't really bother me. It used to bother me a lot, and I like the old Peter better, but this Peter's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. And I think the Eddie stuff was pretty good. Not Eddie, the Harry stuff. It was too obvious, of course,
right
what was going to happen, but I thought the Venom sections and the Venom whole thing about it, and the whole Kraven storyline was really awesome.
Yes, Kraven's Last Hunt is one of the best. Like that's one of my favorite like trade paperbacks of all time. It's so well done, and it's so well implemented and adapted here in Spider-Man 2. So yeah, I love that they did Kraven's Last Hunt when they more or less announced it through trailers and stuff. I was hype as heck. Yeah. I think every comic book fan was too. Kraven's Last Hunt is one of, if you're going to adapt Kraven to a one-shot, that's the storyline you have to pick.
Yeah, and then you were also talking about the traversal, so...
Right. I was going to say, I was just really parroting what you said earlier, but what is that? Is that a strawberry shortcake cup? Okay, Kim. But the traversal is, it's just legendary. I never fast traveled once, unlike some cowards that I know of. And it was just such a good time. The web swing, the web gliding, just bouncing from building to building. It was just peak. I don't know. I know I said this about Spider-Man Miles Morales. I don't know how they're topping this. I really don't. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but like kind of in a very vague spoilery way, I think we will get different gameplay in Spider-Man 3. I'm almost pretty sure that Peter's going to be backing up from his role too. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how they improve it. They can still make improvements to the side quests as well. And they can always make improvements to, the story and how that's paced too.
I think
yeah.
Yeah, I think their improvements, because as much as I really like this game, it's my second favorite superhero game of all time. It was only it was my top 5 game of the year, but it wasn't my top 3 or anything. Mainly because it had performance issues. There was crashes. There was bugs. I didn't have as much as the internet did. The internet, but I think some people were kind of pushing an agenda as well. But I think overall, like the performance could have been better in this game. I think the side content is a lot better than the first game, but there are elements where it could have been better. Like it doesn't. I think the reason why Arkham City is better is Arkham City has better side missions. I feel like the side villains are more memorable. I did like the Easter eggs in this game. I love a lot of like the little hidden storylines. The build up to another villain, which is one of my favorite villains. We'll see in the third game maybe or in the DLC. That was cool. But the performance issues in this game and the side missions could have been better. The pacing could have been better. And I think I know people are. It's kind of like divided on like the gadgets. I know people like the gadgets better in the first game than the second game because the second game is more action focused, where it's you kind of just spam buttons and it just does all the gadgets all at once and fast. While the first game was more like methodical and you had more like Horizon. But that's where the third game can get better. Is performance, side content, and the pacing of the story.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with all that. The gadget stuff never bothered me. I didn't really personally. I didn't notice a big difference in my gameplay experience. I'm sure if I played them back to back, I would.
Yeah.
But I even speed ran the first Spider-Man and beat it in 10 hours, and I didn't really notice too much difference in terms of the gadgets. But I mean, that's just me. Yeah, I totally agree. It could for me, it's still a 5 out of 5. But as we've discussed many times, Seb, doesn't mean it's perfect. Just means like for me, that's like it's a masterful like experience, like top to bottom. Pretty much everything that should work does work. Yeah. But I also agree with you that all 3 of those things could have been improved just a little bit here and there.
Sure.
And I think they really could nail it even more in Spider-Man 3. And I mean, we're not getting that for a long time. We'll probably get Wolverine before we get that. But
yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite superhero game of all time, Spider-Man 2.
I mean,
Insomniacs.
We will be getting DLC because that's what the leak says. So
that's right. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, and I know who the villain is and stuff if it's true, but I won't say it here. But
definitely don't say it to me.
Yeah, I won't. So I think Arkham City is a 5 out of 5, and I think Spider-Man 2 is like a 4.5 out of 5. So it has its flaws, but it's still a great game, and I had a blast playing it. Spider-Man's my favorite. Like even if the game wasn't perfect, I'll never not have a blast playing a Spider-Man game if it's good. So I can't totally be objective with Spider-Man because I kind of have like Spider-Man's just like if a Spider-Man game is fun or like the movie's fun, I like it because I just like Spider-Man so much. All right, so that's our show for tonight. I really like our list. I could have give you like 5 more games, of course, but like I think those are definitely the definitive superhero games for me, like in my lifetime. But there's a lot of hidden gems as well that we can talk about in the future. All right, so thanks for joining me, Dory. You have a good night.
Yeah.
And I'll see you later. See you next week. Peace.
Hope everybody has a super week. Am I right? Oh no, I'm getting pulled off the stage. No.